This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
Next up, we've got Dick Slater pinning Alex Wright in 1 minute and 55 seconds. Medusa was chasing Colonel Parker around ringside, and this distracted Alex Wright. That gave Slater the opening to clock Wright with his cowboy boot and score the pin. It got a dud rating. We haven't spent a lot of time talking about Dick Slater. What Dick Slater stories do you have with us?
Well, you're not listening or remembering who was my idol before I got, when I was a teenager. Who was my idol? Who is one of the two guys that made me want to be a wrestler?
Elvis Presley, clearly. No, yeah, I know Dick Slater, but I mean here in WCW. Like that little territory stuff. I mean, here in this era, he's sort of hokey pokey with WCW. He's here for a little bit, but not very long. Was he just winding his career down? Was he not a good fit with the corporate style wrestling? Why didn't Dick stick around longer here?
Well, Dick was like a old timer, but an old timer that could still work.
Right.
And I just idolized the guy, and I saw him on nights that he had somebody to work with and he had enough time. I saw him when they put him with Dick Murdoch. And if you were like the Hardliners, I think was their name, if you remember that.
They were badasses.
You're damn right they were. And this was during that same time period. Dick still had it. He just wasn't cast into roles because, this was a time where both companies, WWF, which is now WWE, obviously, WCW, were looking for young stars, new stars, out with the old, in with the new. I was looked at like a dinosaur. I'm sure Dick Slater was looked at like a dinosaur, but the guy could go. And plus, he was tough as hell. He was one of those guys, like when he was in the locker room, everybody knew, don't screw around with Slater. Or if they didn't know, they're just lucky that they didn't, some of the young guys. And he was just a guy I always looked up to, and to just get to be around him that little bit, even at the end, even though he wasn't being used real well. I'm actually shocked going back that they had him beat Alex.
Right.
Alex was one of the young guys, one of the new stars they were trying to build.
Tell me a little bit about the legend of Dick Slater. I mean, he just passed away a few years ago. His wrestling career, at least in ring, is going to end later this year in 1996. He winds up having two vertebrae blow out on him. Easy for me to say. And I just assumed a guy like that, who had been around as long as he had been around, would have probably found a backstage role either with Vince or here with Ted Turner. And that wasn't necessarily the case. Was he just not cut out for that type of thing, do you think? Was he just one of the boys to the end?
Most guys aren't cut out for that job.
Yeah. Why is that?
Well, because it's hard to step away from being one of the boys and taking on the responsibility of being in the office.
Right.
And Dick was not, just because, well, let me use another example, which will help you understand about Dick. Now, Dick, when I went to Crockett in '85, and I was there a few months, and they put me with Ole, and they sent us back down to do the Georgia and the Ohio and Michigan loops. Dick was the booker down there. So he was the go-between between Jimmy Crockett, Dusty, and that group of guys. So that was an office role. But that whole thing didn't last very long. Now, as far as Dick moving into like a agent or producer role, here's the comparison. Ted DiBiase, who I think is one of the greatest workers that's ever been.
Yes.
In this business.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he could work, and he could put together a match and a story, and that character, he had it down. But he wasn't a guy that could sit down in advance and map out a match that was going to happen in 5 hours. He was a guy that went to the ring with his opponent, felt the audience, ad-libbed, played off of the audience's reaction, and that's what he did. and he was a great performer. Not a lot of guys can sit there at 3:00 in the afternoon and talk about two talents, going out and having a match. And here's what we're going to do, A to F, until you see how the crowd's going to react.
Right.
Dick wouldn't have been one of those guys that could sit there at 4 PM because Dick went out and just worked. And a guy would fall in line if he was experienced, and he would counter what Dick was doing, or he would fight back or do all the natural things that you know to do once you become a veteran. But he wouldn't have been able to sit there at 3:00 and go, okay, let's see, what do you do and what do you do? And let's see how we can mesh that and blend it and make it work. That wouldn't have been one of those things that would have been his long suit.
Maybe I'm asking something that you don't know about, but it is a famous story. Do you know the story about Dick Slater getting shot in the leg?
Yeah, I think Wahoo shot him.
The famous story goes, there was a night out in the bars with the boys in Atlanta, and Tommy Rich is there, and I think Andre's there, and somebody at the bar, a regular patron, a civilian, if you will, makes some sort of derogatory comment about Tommy Rich's wife. That pisses Wahoo and Tommy Rich off. The guy thinks he'll get cute and pulls a knife. Wahoo pulls a gun. And eventually this leads to Wahoo allegedly pistol whipping this guy in the parking lot. And the gun accidentally fires and hits Dick Slater in the leg. The police come, and Slater swears it was a sniper shot, that this guy had a buddy on a building with a gun. That's who did it. It was definitely not the American Indian pistol whipping a guy in the bar. Yeah.
That's awesome. And you know what? In that era, in that day and time, they could have got away with it.
I think they did. Unbelievable how this wrestling business has changed and what's possible and what's not possible now. And RIP to Mr. Slater. We lost him in 2018, but boy, what an innovator.
Well, hey, no matter what you thought about him, if you go back and think about the fact he was in a terrible car wreck,
yeah,
that could have killed him.
Yeah.
And then he got shot in the leg by Wahoo, and he was still able to perform at that level. That's why he was my idol.
Yeah. He's a badass. I mean, him and Murdoch are arguably two of the baddest dudes ever to form a tag team.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.